It will shatter your reality.
So
another
anyway,
thing I love about this, though,
sorry.
what you're saying is that so part of this belief system that the U.S. is a sheep factory, because I felt it maybe when I was younger, or,
sure.
back when I had life and thought I mattered. Part of that is, yeah, they're a bunch of sheep, but not me. But the funny thing is, you're saying everybody has this attitude. That means everybody thinks that everybody's a bunch of sheep, but not me.
Yes. And that gets into the second part of this, which I actually didn't even get into the chapter. So I'm glad you brought it up. Is there's this thing called the third person effect, or pluralistic ignorance. And it's a social psychology term. And it basically is referring to if you ask people, do they believe something? Oftentimes they'll say, well, I don't believe it, but everybody else does. And what's fascinating, so one example would be advertising. So if you ask people, does advertising work? Are you when you see advertising, are you compelled? Does it work on you? The answer is no, it doesn't work on me. I'm mostly too smart for that.
But it works on everyone else.
Right, exactly right. So there's this thing where it's like everybody says, well, advertising doesn't work on me because I'm smarter than that. I'm not an idiot. But everybody, all my cousins and friends, like they see a Big Mac ad and they run out to McDonald's. But what happens is like, well, hold on here. It's like, if everybody is saying that, then that can't be true, right? If you're pointing to everybody around you who believes that, and when you ask them, they point to you, and you're not endorsing that, then that your premise can't be true. Yep. And this is exactly what you're talking about here with the education stuff.
Well, I think I somewhat stumbled across this in life, because I came up with this theory that if somebody is under 25 and you want to know what they're like, you just ask them what they're like and assume the exact opposite. They're going to say, oh, well, I'm really kind of laid back and chilled. No, they're not. If somebody's over 25 and you want to know what they're like, just ask them what they think everybody else is like. And that's what they're like. So this has been one of my rules of like, so if somebody's just, oh yeah, everybody's always like scheming and trying to like ruin people, I'd be, I need to stay away from this guy. This guy is like scheming and trying to ruin people,
Right.
But this is a good segue. Another one that you put in here was subliminal advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, I love the idea. I'm a horror movie fan. There's cool little subliminals in The Exorcist and lots of stuff that I like. They got that monster flash face, and then they got screaming pigs in the background. Does this stuff work?
No. The short answer is no.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is no. The longer answer is not really, but here's why people think that it does. And again, I have I think I'd spent 4 or 5 pages on it. I'll sort of give a quick summary, but again, this actually goes back to what we were talking about before. As you mentioned, there's a segue there, because the idea is that the elite, those in power, whether it's the government trying to keep us ignorant, right, or whether it's whatever else trying to sell us, popcorn or Coke at the concession stand, they have secret ways of manipulating us that we don't know. And one of them, as you mentioned, is subliminal advertising. And I remember the first time I ever heard about this, I was probably in my early teens, and I bought a used book in a used bookstore titled "Subliminal Seduction." It's a famous or infamous book, and the cover, it was a paperback, and the cover has it's a close up of ice in a bourbon glass, and the cover is like, do you see the hidden messages in this? I'm like, oh, hold on here, right? And so I'm like, wow. It's like, so when you read the book, it's like, well, this is this photograph of this ice in this bourbon glass, is used to sell this whiskey, and and it's causing people. It's like, if you look closely, you can see, like, there's like people having sex, and there's like drug use and Satan work. I'm like, really?
It's always a wang. Wasn't it Joe's Camel's nose?
Yeah. Always a wang. So and again, going back to psychology, right? In psychology, we know why this happens, right? It's called pareidolia. There's people interpret ambiguous stimuli. I remember, back this, I'm dating myself here, but back when there was Skinamax, and I remember having cable TV, and we would get the fuzzy, again. This is going way back, but so there'd be static, and you kind of see the softcore porn channels, but not really. And I always thought,
I'll pretend I know what you're talking.
Yeah, okay, just pretend you know it. So what happened was, I remember this very clearly because I'd be watching some static, right? They'd be going in and out, and I'm picturing like hardcore stuff,
right?
And it would clear up, and it was like, two old people walking in a park. I'm like, oh man, this is not what
right,
this
totally.
Is not
I was
what
right there.
Right, this is not what I signed up for. Anyway, so basically, so again, the idea is that actually the concern over subliminal advertising really emerged in the 1940s and 50s, when there was concern about all sorts of things, meet evil influences. We had the Red Scare and things like that. And so there was a guy that had put out done a study, and it later turned out he'd hoaxed the whole thing. But the idea was that he said that that he ran a small theater, and he said that he had flashed, I think it was like drink popcorn, eat Coke or something, or vice versa. Probably the vice versa. And when it makes sense, right? And after this, like he said that basically Coke sales and popcorn sales tripled and so on. And people were freaking out because, like, oh my God, this is a new technology, right? And so people were freaking out, and there were actually congressional hearings. People, the government was looking into this. Is this really true? And he later had to admit that, well, he made it up. There was no study. It was the whole thing was basically manufactured, because he was promoting himself as the ad guy that can do this.
Right.
So he creates this hoax and tells everybody, oh, I did this study, and if you hire me, I can triple the number of Chevys you sell by using subliminal advertising. And they didn't know any better in the 50s. Like, oh my God. It later turned out that there was nothing to it. But meanwhile, that idea got lodged into the public consciousness.
So 70 years later.
Yeah, 70 years later, exactly. And so I mean, the fact is that you can, as Chauncey was saying, you can flash images. It's not difficult to show somebody subliminal images. That's easy to do. That's not hard at all. You should just alter the frame rate and put it in there, and there it is. That's not the same as getting somebody to do something, such as buy a Coke, or or do something, or advertising, or go out and get laid, or whatever it is. So the idea that there's these hidden messages in otherwise innocuous stimuli, such as an ad or whatever else, that gets lodged in people's consciousness, and because they're like, oh yeah, if I have a sudden urge, if I'm suddenly hungry, is it because I saw a subliminal ad? Well, no, you haven't eaten since 3. So
right, yeah. Or you're like me. I mean, I'm like the Hulk of eating. When he's just all, my secret is I'm always angry. I'm like, I'm always hungry. There is no trick there.
Hey kids. Hi, kiddo. Say, why do you kids wear kids?
So I can run faster and jump farther.
So I can win more often.
Right. Always look for the label big and blue. Kids, kids, kids. That spells out U.S. kids for you. Kids, kids, kids. Those shock arches sure are neat. The rights of